In the past, there have been multiple news stories about how low-profile kingpins and criminals who use the Tor network to conceal their true identity, until one day the authorities would get a lead and apprehend the criminals. Now, how did they do this? The media would likely have you believe that the authorities use some kind of exploit or their powers as the police to get the necessary data from whoever they want to pin the blame on. But this isn't how the authorities get the majority of their leads. Oh no. The truth is quite a bit more mundane, but important nonetheless. Firstly, if you take away one thing from this entire video, it would be, in essence, don't be a moron. There are plenty of stories online about, for example, school kids making threats to schools online using anonymous email providers, temporary email providers, or utilising the Tor network. If you attract enough unwanted attention, the authorities have the ability and the drive to eventually track you down. No matter how good you think you are, you will eventually slip up on your OPSEC and lead whoever is after you straight to you. Now, let's take the well-known dark web kingpin, formerly known as DPR, or Dread Pirate Roberts. If you didn't know, Dread Pirate Roberts was the admin for a site on the dark web known as Silk Road. It was the first of its kind, a marketplace letting users sell anything they wanted to with no moderation. Payments were in Bitcoin and illicit substances were the majority market. It was an ingenious idea and one that made Dread Pirate Roberts a very wealthy man, but not for too long. Over time, the site grew larger and larger, attracting more attention from law enforcement and increasing their resolve to get the site shut down. Over a years-long investigation, law enforcement managed to link an old account created by DPR to ask for programming help to his real identity, being Ross Ulbricht. The authorities then staged a domestic altercation between a couple in a library where Ross was located, working on his laptop. Ross went to go help out, and the authorities snatched his laptop, copied all of the files before they could be encrypted, and the rest is history. Now, the technology used for the illicit website Silk Road was sound. Well, maybe not the host servers. But contrary to what the media would have you believe, the onion routing protocol used within the Tor network didn't have any exploits that the police knew about or utilised. The weakest link in keeping anonymous is, of course, human error, both virtually and, as in Ross Ulbricht's case, physically. And that is exactly how Ross got himself caught, and is also how other criminals and journalists alike also get caught. Not by the fault of the Tor network itself, but by the fault of themselves, being morons. Don't be a moron. Now, there are many different ways you can mitigate your own mistakes when using the Tor network. See my video on how to browse Tor safely above. But the general consensus is to use your common sense. Let's go back to Ross Ulbricht and his online aliases. The first ever mention of the Silk Road was on a forum posted by a user known as Altoid, whose account information was authentic and led straight to Ross Ulbricht, enabling the authorities to track him down and follow him. The lesson from this: do not use your real identity online anywhere. Sounds pretty simple, right? But one of, if not the most successful person to ever run a business on the dark web didn't follow that golden rule and led the authorities straight to him. But let's say you want to sign up to a spooky forum board on the dark web anonymously. What's the best way to go about doing that? Well, the first thing is to never use your real name or information. That one seems pretty obvious. But another thing you should do is to use one of the many email providers that don't glow like the sun. This means you should probably refrain from using your Gmail account you've had since you were about 7 for signing up to a sketchy forum you found by clicking on a dozen onion links. Now, one thing you should know is that email is never 100% private, and your email provider can and probably does keep logs on your emails. This definitely includes the likes of Proton Mail, who toted on their website that emails are encrypted and that they do not keep logs, though these claims can never be 100% verified, and you can only trust their word, so you need to keep that in mind whenever you think your emails are private. Though you can find email providers that glow quite a bit less than average. For example, Gorilla Mail, who provides free emails that lasts 1 hour before they are automatically deleted. There's also Tutanota, whose email client is open source and under the GPL3 license. I think Tutanota is about the most private of an email provider you can get. I like to think that you can tell how private of a means of communication is by how many countries have outlawed its domestic use. For example, Russia and Egypt have both banned the use of the Tutanota email provider, So I think that's a pretty good indication as to how Tutanota responds to governments demanding they send user logs or any other demand. Tutanota also provides you with permanent email addresses and not temporary ones, which is kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you have an email address which you can use for however long you want to, but that also introduces the possibility of the powers that be tracing you online through the services you sign your email up to, though using multiple emails will obviously stem their ability to do this. Now, by providing an email to a forum provider, you're also assuming that the forum is hosted on secure servers. After all, you wouldn't want your email placed on a watch list with the Glow Boys, right? But I suppose using a different email address for every service you sign up to on the dark web is a good way to negate the threat that could arise from this. It's also just a more secure way of going about signing up to sites and whatnot. This could also apply to the ClearNet as well. Don't use one single email for everything, it's a single point of failure. You can also be fingerprinted and tracked online through your online language, the way you write. Now, I watched a news story a couple of years ago. I couldn't tell you what it was about specifically, but it was where the police were doing an investigation into a fraud case between a woman and an Anon online, and the way they caught the guy was by how he ended his messages with people and the way he greeted them in private messages and forum posts. The authorities used this data to trace their way to his public Facebook page, where they then got his details and took him to the nick. But this guy's story brings up a very valuable point. When you're online talking with other Anons, you never know who they are, so why should you let them know who you are by the way you write? You want to become almost a parody of yourself, take on a different behaviour and change it up as commonly as you can. You could compare this to how you behave differently when you're with your parents and when you're hanging out with your friends. I doubt anyone acts the same in those two situations, so why should you being online be any different? Now, this advice goes for the ClearNet, but even more so for the dark web. Never reveal your true behaviour. In order to make sure you observe good OPSEC at all times and minimise any chance of anyone fingerprinting you or unmasking you, make sure to take all of these points into account. And above all else, just have common sense. If you take away one thing from this entire video, make sure it is that you keep your wits about you at all times and practice common sense. You would be surprised how uncommon common sense now is. Well, that's about it for today's video. If you found this useful or enjoyed my poor writing skills, please like the video and make sure to subscribe if you enjoy this type of stuff. We have a bunch of this stuff on the channel, make sure to check it out. Have a good day everyone, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.